Chapter 4. Bettina gives a luncheon. Just want to remind you to stay hydrated. And what am I drinking today? I have some iced rooibos tea. This is my husband's favorite. Oh, you darling Bettina. Did you do it all yourself? Mary exclaimed impulsively as the girls admired the dainty first course which their hostess set before them. Everything is pink and white, like the wedding. Yes, said Bettina, and those Malene bows on the basket of roses actually attended my wedding. And after this is over, you may see that Malene again. I expect to press it out and put it away for other pink luncheons in other Junes. Today, since my guests were to be just my bridesmaids, I thought that a pink luncheon would be the most appropriate kind. Isn't it fine to be in Bettina's own house? I can't realize it, said Ellen. And the idea of daring to cook a whole luncheon and serve it in courses all by herself. Why, Bettina, how did you know what to have? Well, said Bettina, I went to the market and saw all the inexpensive things that one can buy in June. They had to be inexpensive. Why, if I were to tell you just what this luncheon cost, you'd laugh. But I want you to like it all before I give that secret away. And then in planning my menu, I thought of pinky things that went together. That was all, you see. But didn't it take hours and hours to prepare everything? Why, no. I thought it all out first and wrote it down and did most of it yesterday. I found that 5 minutes of planning is worth 5 hours of unplanned work. I haven't hurried, and as Bob will have the same meal as his dinner tonight, I didn't have to think of him except to plan for more. You see, I estimated each portion as carefully as I could, for it isn't necessary to have a lot of leftover things. Tonight I'll wear this same pink gown at dinner so that Bob will get every bit that he can of my first luncheon except the silly girls who flattered the cook. Bettina, there are so many things I'd like to ask you, said Ruth, who was a little conscious of the shining ring on her left hand. Tell me, for instance, how you shaped these cunning timbales. With your hands? With a conical ice cream mold. It was so easy that way. And this salad. Fred is so fond of salad, but I don't know a thing about making it. Well, I washed the lettuce thoroughly, and when it was very wet, I put it on the ice in a cloth. I poured boiling water over these tomatoes to make the skins peel off easily. And oh yes, these cucumbers are crisp because I kept the slices in ice water for a while before I served them. Good salad is always very cold. The ingredients ought to be chilled before they are mixed. These dear little cakes, Bettina, how could you make them in such cunning shapes? With a fancy cutter. And I dipped it in warm water each time before I used it so that it would cut evenly. I'd love to show you girls all that I know about cooking. Do learn it now while you're at home. It will save much labor and even tears. Why, Bob said, I knew this was coming, laughed Alice. Girls, in self-defense, let's keep the conversation strictly on Betty's menu and away from Betty's husband. And so they discussed strawberries au naturel, cornlet soup, whipped cream, croutons, salad timbales with egg sauce, buttered beets, potato croquettes, pinwheel biscuit, butter balls, vegetable salad, salad dressing, wafers, fancy cakes, and coffee. Well, here we are getting ready to discuss chapter 4 in our cookbook. 1,000 Ways to Please a Husband. Again, this book was written in 1917, so we're over 100 years ago, well over 100 years, and we're thinking about life back in that time, and we're thinking about life for a newlywed couple, Bettina and Bob. And Bettina is, in this chapter, hosting a luncheon for her bridesmaid group of friends, and so what we have going here are ideas about decorating with materials that were used at her wedding. And I know a lot of money is spent on some weddings, and there's an awful lot of materials that are used in that. I have a zipper bag that I keep ribbon in, and you can see that I have things that, you know, I've collected off of packages that have come to me, and some of it is new ribbon that I've bought also. For example, you know, maybe this and the string here. I'm going with the pinks right now because this was the theme in the bridesmaid luncheon, is she was reusing the colors from the wedding, and pink was one of the colors, interestingly. So I do have this ribbon that is obviously was used on something and I have saved it. And she talks about having saved her pink Malene and using it again. So she is using something like this in her table decoration, and the bridesmaids immediately recognize it and think that she is so clever for reusing that and not being wasteful with it. And she talks about, well, guess what? You'll see it again in other Junes because I am going to iron it and fold it up and reuse it again. And so that's a good idea. You know, I did kind of show you that I had started a little visual about the 6 R's, and I haven't colored this yet, but I kind of like the way it's come out so far with the swirly lines. So I came across this online, the 6 R's idea. Number 1 is reduce, which means consuming less and avoiding excess. Number 2 is reuse, which is find a new way to use it. Number 3 is recycle, process its materials for new products. Number 4 is repurpose, transform it to serve a different use. Number 5 is refuse. And so you ask yourself, is this thing sustainable, or is it a one-time use item? And if so, you might just refuse to use it or buy it. Number 6 is repair. And so fix it instead of tossing it to buy something new, right? So those are the 6 R's. And again, you can find this list online in many different places. So what is she doing when she uses her wedding decor again, this time for a luncheon? Let's see. She's reducing because she's consuming less, isn't she? She's not buying something new because it's already been paid for. It already has been made, produced. Okay, she's reusing it. She's finding a new way to use it. So it was used in the wedding. Maybe it was bows at the end of each of the seating aisles, something like that, right? And now maybe she is using it as bows. It says on the basket of roses. So the basket of roses is her centerpiece. And so she has made this into bows to put around that basket on the table. Okay, so she's reusing this in a new way. She's not recycling because she didn't take it apart and make something else out of it. But she was repurposing it, right? Because she was transforming it to serve a different use. However, I think that kind of overlaps with reuse in this case. So I'm sure that maybe reuse is a better definition in this case. And let's see, she didn't refuse, she didn't repair, but she did reduce, reuse, and possibly repurpose her ribbon from her wedding. So now I have mine finally in a neat bundle here. This is a wire edged ribbon, so it folds and stays nicely. So that's much better to add to my basket of ribbons there, which I need to declutter that. Actually, I don't need to keep all those. I'm not probably going to be using as much as is in there now. And I'm just starting to get really interested in cutting back on things. So I don't suggest you keep everything, but keep those principles in mind and apply them as is wise for you. Okay, so I'm turning back in my homemaking notebook to my list here, and we are going to talk about a quote from the chapter. Bettina says that 5 minutes of planning is worth 5 hours of unplanned work. Okay, so yeah, wouldn't you rather work for 5 minutes than 5 hours? Yeah, okay. So think about that. And she's just talking about how she pulled that luncheon together by thinking ahead of time. What could she use? What did she already have? What would be cost effective? And then she had a theme in mind. She wanted to stay with the color. She wanted to stay with that pink and white, or that, at least a pink idea. And so she found foods that would fit in with that color theme. Notice her menu then is, let's see, chapter 4 menu was the beets, for example, were of that, and the cakes, she tried to bring in that pinkish, reddish or pinkish coloring. And then she wanted her dress to be the pink gown that she had, and she wanted it to be pretty and lovely for the luncheon. Because back then, you know, ladies did wear dresses always and only, and they did have gowns and dresses that they would reserve for using in times of eating at the table. So she's going to put on this pink gown that she particularly likes, and she's going to keep it on because she wants herself to be wearing it when Bob comes home, because she wants to look nice for him. So that's something to keep in mind that we don't do too often anymore. We kind of tend to look how we look, and we can be very, very casual in our time and in our culture. And Ruth and Fred are another newly married couple, and Ruth is attending the luncheon, and she's picking up tips from Bettina, that things she can do to please her husband Fred in her new home. And then we'll talk about salad. Salad, she says, is best served chilled. And there is a way to get your lettuce greens crisp by submerging them in ice water or very cold water for a very short time before you put the salad together. And then you could have your cucumbers and tomatoes refrigerated before you chop them and add them to the lettuce. And that's what she did. I noticed maybe it is something from the time period, but she did remove the skins from her tomatoes before she added them to the salad. That's not something that I ever do or have ever done for salad, for fresh salad. So, and that is all we have to talk about today for chapter 4. Chapter 5 is going to be, oh, I guess I do have another something to say, but chapter 5 is Bob helps get the dinner. So Bob's going to help in the kitchen next chapter. And so let's just talk about one thing about the fancy cakes that she served at her luncheon, because I see that I didn't say anything about that yet. She used special little cutters to cut them out, and I think that if you made something like a Texas sheet cake that is very thin and flat, and you know it's not an appealing presentation, that you can use like a cookie cutter even like a biscuit cutter just for a nice little circle, or you could use something else like a big flower or a star perhaps, cutting out the cake and then putting those shapes at the individual places. And she mentioned also serving her strawberries natural, au naturel, um, in meaning fresh and not prepared. And so she used a little paper doily and some powdered sugar, and that's been pressed into a little lump in the center and then put the berries around it. So she had little touches that were extra special for her friends for this special commemoration luncheon, to remember the wedding and to thank the bridesmaids for their help with everything. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you're enjoying this series, going through this cookbook from 1917 called A Thousand Ways to Please a Husband, and learning about the culture of the time, and also because this was written as an instructional novel, hopefully picking up a few tips and just enjoying thinking about making your home more beautiful and more welcoming. God bless you.